Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. My name is Mike Avery, the big guy, and so glad to have you along with us once again as we embark in this 3-hour weekly celebration of the outdoor lifestyle. A celebration of the outdoor world, of getting out in the fresh air and the sun and the rain and the cold and the whatever it is. Mother Nature. The real world. Get away from the digital world. And listen, because of what I do, I spend a significant part of my day, check that, a significant part of my week in the digital world because it's how I reach people. I'm comfortable with it. I embrace it. But does it define who I am? No. It's the outdoors. It's getting back to the basics. It's reconnecting with my history, my family history, our Michigan heritage, hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping. That's what this show is all about. And I am so glad to have you along with us. As we get ready, well, we're kicking off a new month. Welcome, by the way, to the month of May. Did you get enough April showers to bring your May flowers? It's pretty dry across much of the state this April, wasn't it? But it's now, as you're hearing this show, the month of May. May brings a lot of promise. Promise of warmer weather, of nice weather, morels, fishing, turkey hunting, the mosquito season. I'll talk about my turkey hunts here in just a minute. May also is the time that those of us here in Michigan apply for our bear and elk tags. Don't forget, you don't want it to be June 1st and go, oh, man, I didn't apply. Now, if you did for some reason forget, there's always the Pure Michigan hunt that you can apply for. And if for some reason you should win that, you'll come out better because you'll get your choice of bear tags and you'll get a bull elk tag and everything else. But I will be applying here in the next couple of weeks for my Michigan bear tag and my Michigan elk tag. And I know full well that I will never ever get a Michigan elk tag. I know that, and I have resigned myself to that fact. But I will continue to apply because, like the old commercial says, you can't win if you don't play. So I will apply, and I will apply for the Pure Michigan hunt as well. Now, I'm more optimistic about a Michigan bear tag. It took me 9 years to get my first Michigan bear tag. But I was holding out for the first season because I had never hunted bears in Michigan before, and because at the time I had been bear hunting in Quebec and bear hunting in Ontario, which, of course, this year we can't do. So there's no way in the world that I'm holding out for the first season in Michigan bear hunting ever again because I like to bear hunt too much. I will once again apply for the third season in the Newberry District. And my odds of getting that after just hunting there last year are about, I don't know what, I'd have to look online, maybe 50-50? Is it a guarantee? No way. If I went to the far western UP, would my odds be better? Yes. But I think I have a reasonable shot, no pun intended, of getting the third season in Newberry this year. Far better odds than I will of ever getting an elk tag, that is for sure. But that's down the road. What's going on right now? Well, I'm still turkey hunting. I don't have a bird yet, but I've had some pretty cool close encounters. Yesterday, for example, I had set aside some time that I knew I could put some time in the woods. Now, some of these days, I know I can only hunt for a couple of hours and I got to get back and go to work. Yesterday, I knew I was going to hunt till noon, so I was in it for a good 6 hours. The day started out on kind of a weird note because I got halfway to my hunting spot, which is about a half hour from my house, and realized that even though I looked at my boots as I was walking out of the garage, I forgot to grab them. Can you relate? I looked at them. They were sitting there. I saw them, and I still left without them. Thank goodness I remembered before I got out there because I've got to walk through some water, and it was a little chilly, at least first thing in the morning, and I didn't think hunting in my tennis shoes was a great idea. And I was still close enough where I turned around and went back home. I was already running just a few minutes later than I wanted to be, and by the time I turned around and went back home, I got to the woods late. It was light enough I didn't need a flashlight to see. But for some reason, I still had a good feeling. And I think you can relate to this, right? There are some days in the woods or on the water that just feel right. They feel different. They feel special. Now, listen, every day in the woods or on the water is a great day. It's a blessing, right? But there are some days that there's something in the air that you just know it's going to be a good one. So I get out there, and as I'm walking to my blind, the birds are gobbling, but they're far enough away where I'm not bumping them off the roost. I get set up in my blind. I got birds gobbling to the west of me. One bird. I can tell there's one bird gobbling to the west of me, and then another bird fires off to the east of me. So I am right between two birds gobbling on the roost. Isn't that pretty much where you'd like to be? That's where I wanted to be that morning. So I thought, okay, Avery, this further adds to your thought that this is going to be a special day. The birds gobbled pretty hard on the roost, hit the ground and shut up, as they often do. About 20 minutes later, I'm scanning with my binoculars, right? Even though I'm only shooting 10 yards in front of me, my decoys are 8 yards in front of me. I want to see what's out there a ways off because I don't want to be surprised if they come in quiet. And I see two longbeards strutting in the pasture about 75 yards north of me, and they were coming from the west. I had only heard what I thought was one bird gobbling on the roost to the west of me. In fact, there were two of them. So now I know I've got at least two longbeards strutting north of me. I've got the longbeard or the gobbler to the east of me that I haven't seen yet that I know is still out there. Okay, again, a very special day in the woods. The strutters wandered off to the east, and then everything was quiet. No big deal. I know there are birds in the area, so I'm still thinking it's going to be a good day. Mid-morning, I hear a bird from the east fire up, like out of nowhere, gobbled. Ooh, I like that. Because I'm one of those guys where if I don't hear birds, I tend to not be as intense as when I hear birds. So I responded, and he gobbled right away. Bingo. Boom. This is going to happen. See, Avery, you knew it was going to be a good day, didn't you? And he's coming in, and he's gobbling hard, and I'm not talking to him. Because once they start to come, shut up and let them come. But then he hung up, as they often do, about 100 yards away. And how do you really know, right? Because I never had eyes on him. I never got to see him. I'm just guessing he was about 100 yards. And he stood out there, and he gobbled for a full half hour. But he wouldn't come in. And I had hit him a couple times with a slate call. And it was clear he wasn't coming. So finally I said, I got nothing to lose. I picked up a box call, and I made a couple of very soft yelps, very soft, to try to give him a different sounding call to maybe encourage him to come in. Man, he did not like that box call. Even though it was soft, he did not like that box call, and he shut up. And he was quiet for a good 10 minutes, and I thought, you blew it. He's gone. He did end up gobbling again later, but I was never able to call him in. But you know what? I was right. It was a special day in the woods. I saw two strutters, and I had a conversation with another one. That's a good day in the woods. Far better than the day I had in the woods last year when I was walking out of the woods all with my blind and chair and decoys and bow. And remember, like an old clumsy doof, I tripped over a stick and fell and went face first. Blew my eye out. I mean, I didn't blow it out of my head, but detached my retina, had to have surgery to get it fixed. So even though I haven't killed a bird yet this year, in a lot of ways, it's a far better season than it was last year. And listen, I've got till the end of May. Although by the end of May, I hope to be walleye fishing on Saginaw Bay aboard the Angler Quest, which I still don't have yet, by the way, but it's coming. It's coming. Who's coming up on the show this week? Thank you for asking. After the break here, I hope to talk with Kris Duerson of Rapidriverknifeworks. He's in the middle of the UP with a sketchy sell, but hopefully we can do that conversation. Then Nick Buggia of the Michigan Wildlife Council. And hour number 2, we're talking about early season Lake Michigan salmon trolling and trout with Adam Knudson. Then Clay Buchanan from the DNR joins me to talk about wildlife grants, habitat grants. This week's Ask Avery segment deals with the question of where are all the turkeys? I'm hearing this from a lot of people. Where are the birds? Hour number 3, we're talking with Richard P. Smith. And then Kevin Vistisen of the Deer Hunter podcast. He is resurrecting the question about whether the Rompola buck is real or not. He interviewed me for the podcast, so I'll bring him on to talk about that. And then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. A busy show this week here on Outdoor Magazine, but I'm so glad you're along with us. Lots more coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Traverse City on WTCM. That's 580 AM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC AM and FM, 660 AM, 95.3 FM. And you can hear us in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Speedy Blaze. Speedy Blaze is a safe, clean, water-resistant alternative to firewood. It's safe to cook over. Because it's made from recycled hardwood. It's moisture resistant. It is insect resistant, which means you can carry it around the state and across the bridge. Easy to start, burns hot, burns clean, and burns a long time. You can put them in your stove. You can put it in your fireplace. You can put it in your fire pit. You can cook over it. It's a great product. And it's a Michigan-based company. You know I love that. Check them out online at speedyblaze.com. That's speedyblaze.com. Speaking of Michigan companies, and again, I have made no secret that I love to work with Michigan-based family-owned companies. That's my sweet spot. And there is a company that I've been wanting to work with for years because I've just been in awe of their products. It's Rapidriverknifeworks. You know, it's one of those categories that crosses over everything. Right now, as you're listening to this show, I bet the odds are pretty good you've got a knife on your belt or in your pocket. I do. I carry a knife all the time. And I have wanted to work with Kris Duerson of Rapidriverknifeworks for the longest time. And we are now finally partnered up. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Kris, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing wonderful. And secondly, welcome to the Outdoor Magazine family.
Oh, thank you very much. Good to be here. I know I've been hounding you for years, but
well, that's not
it the other way around.
I was going to say that's not the way I remember it, but whatever works out. Kris, tell me a little bit about your company.
Well, we're actually coming up on our 20th anniversary here. As you mentioned earlier in the program, I worked at Marvel Arms for 4 years while I was going to college, and that was right around the time that Marvel's was transitioning from American-made cutlery to cutlery made overseas. And I watched a very large portion of the people at the Marvel's factory in Gladstone be let go. And I knew that there was a very high demand for high-quality handmade knives, especially in Michigan. And I had a feeling I could read the writing on the wall, so I I left and started this company in my garage 20 years ago, and it actually has paid off. There was a huge hole that was going to happen, and it happened, and we stepped right in and filled that gap. So 20 years later, we're still going strong and handcrafting custom knives right here in the beautiful Upper Peninsula of Michigan and carrying on the tradition.
I love these types of stories. I mean, you started in your garage, and now you've got this beautiful, I mean, absolutely beautiful showroom that brings in people from all across the country.
It does. It's a destination. When I built the new showroom back in 2017, I wanted to create more of a destination, an experience, rather than just, hey, here's our knives, which one do you want to buy type of situation. And we've been able to do that, and we get customers from all over the world that travel there, primarily starting in May through the end of December, although we're open year-round. It's a great experience for a family. Even if you're not into knives, when you leave there, I'll bet you money you're going to be into them.
Exactly. It takes this. It takes the experience. I mean, yeah, you can buy a knife online, but why not go into a place like Jay's? Jay's is a big dealer of yours, or go right to the place where they're made. I think it's a wonderful concept. How many different types of knives do you make these days, Kris?
We've got 45 different blade designs, and in those 45 different blade designs, from pocket knives to fillet knives, hunting knives, and kitchen cutlery, axes, there are endless numbers of possibilities that you can use for handle material. So I've actually got over 10,000 SKUs in my system.
Wow.
That you can order from, or if you just have your son's first buck and you want a knife made out of that antler, then we do that too. So we've got a lot of products, a lot of options.
A true custom knife maker.
Absolutely, and you can see that when you walk into our factory store. You can look through a series of glass windows and watch the whole process happening while you're standing in the store. You can watch your knife being made, and we take it from that point. And we offer free laser engraving, so you can get your knife lasered on the spot within 5 minutes and watch the whole process happen.
You talk about this process of making a knife. I've got to believe it goes back to the steel. I mean, that's the basic building block, right?
That's where it starts. You have to start with good, high-quality steel and build off of that. Yeah, absolutely.
But I hear these different... I hear different numbers. Well, this is a 440 steel or whatever the numbers are. I don't pretend to understand. What am I looking for?
Well, any good type of knife, when you're looking for good edge retention, it has to have carbon in it. You remember all the old butcher knives. If you look at an old butcher knife, the chances are it's gray. The blade is gray, and that's because it's full of carbon. It doesn't mean it's bad steel. It didn't rust, but it's full of carbon. But those old butcher knives held an edge forever, and they still do. And that's what we use. We use high carbon tool steels in our hunting knives and our axes, and it's a must. If you have too much chromium or different alloys in your steels, you're looking at soft edges and that type of thing, and it doesn't end up with a happy customer, I can tell you that. Too many people have a drawer full of throwaway knives that when they go dull, they can't sharpen them again. And it's a big problem. The knife sharpening is an art, and it's a thing of the past, actually. So, yeah, you have to have good steel. We use tool steels that they use in the auto industry to stamp auto parts out with all day long. And we put those in our knife blades and heat treat them properly, and you get great edge life out of them.
So is there a fine line between making it soft enough that you can sharpen it, but hard enough that it holds that edge? I mean, because you could go either way real easy, I would think.
No, absolutely, yeah. The heat treating process alone is an art. Everybody might look at a knife. A lot of people look at a knife and think that the entire blade is heat treated to one Rockwell. Well, our edges are harder than our spines, and there's actually got to be a process done to the blades to where it's called the ricasso. The ricasso is where you'll see our logo on our fixed blade knives. that's going to be a pry point for the people that think it's a crowbar. And you have to take all of that into consideration, because we warranty everything we make 100% for life, and we don't want our knives to break. And at the same time, we want the best edge retention that we can possibly have. So 3 different spots of the knives will be heat treated to different rock wells.
Kris, nobody would use a knife for a pry bar or a screwdriver. That never happens.
No, never.
And you probably see it all the time, don't you?
I see it all the time, yep. I had a guy come in, it was probably 5 years back. He comes into the store, had a showroom full of people. He comes in and he's throwing a big fit, making a scene, and I'm standing there looking at one of our Skinner blade knives, and it's 1/4 inch thick tool steel, and the blade is broken half. And he's telling me that he dropped it in his lawn, and that's how it happened. And I said, "Sir, if you tell me the honest truth of what you did to that knife, I will replace it." And he looked at me for about 10 seconds, and he said, "All right, I own an auto salvage yard, and I was prying open the trunk of this car, and it was, and he ended up breaking the knife." And so I said, "Thank you." And I walked over the case, opened up the case, gave him a brand new one, and the guy's been a great customer ever since. So, yeah, people use them for everything. You have to consider that when you're building it.
You talked about sharpening too, and you and I have had this conversation before. My dad was a master. He could take a whetstone and sit down there and put an edge on a knife you could shave with, and he could do that time and time. Kris, I don't have that knack. I didn't get that gene from my dad. I struggle to put a good edge on a knife. What is the secret?
Well, the secret is your steels. When people talk about having a rough edge or a burr, or when you dull your knife, your blade is composed. There's little microscopic pockets of air in your edge, and when you start to dull a knife, what happens is you're exposing those microscopic air pockets, and they open up and they create a little burr on your edge. So if your edge feels rough, you're starting to get a burr that comes up on the edge. The key to maintaining an edge before you ever take it to a whetstone would be to strop it on leather, like the barbers do with their strops. And that breaks off the small burr and will give you 10 times the edge life before you even have to take it to a stone or these sharpening sticks. There's all kinds of gimmicks out there now, most of which don't work. But if you maintain it as you go, you'll get a lot more edge life before you get to the point to where it needs to be actually reground and resharpened.
On this leather, this strop, is it dry leather? Is it wet? Do you put a little oil on there? How does that work?
No, you don't have to use any oil. I mean, if you really want to get into different compounds, there's different jeweler's rouges that you can use in the process. But the key is to break that burr off while it's small, so you're not rounding your edge off. If the burr gets way too big and you break it off either on a belt or while you're using it, then your knife is round and it needs to be reground from the beginning. And that's where the problem comes in, because 99.9% of the people in this world cannot use a whetstone. And it's almost physically impossible to keep the same angle on both sides as you're doing it by hand. And that's where the problem comes in.
So when your guys and when you in the shop there put an angle on a knife, is it put in a jig or do you do it by hand?
Yeah, we do it by hand and by eye and by years and years and years of hand grinding blades. That's how we do it. There are no jigs. There's no guide helping us. It's all done by a lot of experience and a lot of practice. A lot of messed up blades. You ought to see my bin of blades that didn't work out. But if it's not perfect, it doesn't leave the factory. So. And then after the grinding belts, there's a whole series of buffing wheels, power strops, like I call, and with jeweler's rouge on them, and we tear that burr off of there in 3 different steps if there's one left after the 2,000 grit belt that we use to sharpen them with.
We're talking with Kris Duerson of Rapid River Knife Works, the website rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us. Check it out. Check out the different knives they make. Check out the showroom. We've got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, I want to wrap up this conversation with Kris, let him move on with his day. But I have more questions for him coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK, that's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Iron Mountain on WMIQ 1450 AM and in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. It's busy at Linwood Beach right now. Get in on the action. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com, linwoodbeachmarina.com. I think they still have some slips available. They can get your boat ready for the water. If you fired up the boat and found out there's something wrong, the guys at Linwood Beach can help you out. Just great people, a great location. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. While you're online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and head on over to Rapidriverknifeworks.us. That's the website of Rapid River Knives. Now, listen, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm pretty persistent, and I don't give up. And when I see a company that I want to work with, I try to make it happen. And that's what happened with Rapid River. I have been a fan of these knives for a long time. My friends at Jay's Sporting Goods speak so highly of them and the company owner, Kris Duerson. By the way, Jay's sells Rapid River knives. I always have a knife in my pocket, and I just thought I want to carry a Michigan-made product. And guess what? We were able to make it happen. Kris and I are now working together. They're the newest member of the Outdoor Magazine family, my newest advertising partner, and Kris Duerson is on the line with us right now. Again, Kris, I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
I want to go back to the earlier segment. You talked about stropping a knife, and in my mind, I'm going through this, and I got one question, and it's a stupid question. When I do that, am I pushing the knife forward into that strop like I'm trying to cut it, or am I pulling it backwards?
I like to push it away. You never want to pull a knife towards you. I've seen some pretty bad accidents.
Well, no, let me rephrase. I understand what you're saying. Am I pushing the knife into it like I'm cutting it, or am I pulling it away like I'm not trying to cut it? I'm pulling it away from the edge.
You don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to. What you want to do is essentially turn the knife away on the leather, or denim works, Carhartt works, whatever you have at the time. Either your main goal is to push the knife straight like you'd be sharpening it, and then turn it to break the burr off of the edge.
Gotcha. All right, listen, of all the different knives you have there, we've got to ask ourselves, what do we want? What do we need? How do we go to a company like Rapid River and get the right knife for us?
Well, that's a good question. We offer everything from kitchen knives to pocket knives to fillet knives. So, and some of those knives cross over and have uses that, for you can field dress deer with them. You can cut up your deer with them, but you can also use them in the kitchen. So there's a wide variety that we build, over the years, that based on customer feedback saying, hey, I'd like this blade, I'd like it a little bit thinner, a little bit longer, and that's kind of how we build our product line based on customer feedback. But essentially, it's what you want, what you're used to. Do you need a fillet knife? And if you do, what type of fish do you primarily fillet? Because we have trout fillets all the way up to 13-inch salmon fillets. So there's a huge variety of stuff that you can see on our website, and it just comes down to what you want. And if you want pocket knives, we have pocket knives for everything, every different situation as well. So,
as far as a hunting knife, I feel like people tend to want a blade that's really bigger than what they need. You don't need an 8-inch blade to gut a whitetail.
No, absolutely not. We don't make any large knives. We make knives that are practical and meant to be used. Anybody that's ever used a knife that field dresses a lot of deer or big game, they know that a big blade just gets in the way. And you typically only use about the last inch of your edge anyways. So most of our product line is based on that, 5.5 to 6-inch blade and shorter.
And you say your knives are designed to be used. Even those high-end, really fancy, kind of expensive things, you want people to use them. And I would be tempted to put it up on the shelf and just look at it.
Yeah, everything that we build is meant to be used, and regardless of the price or the handle material or whatever's on that knife, if anything were to ever happen to that knife, to where if you break it, if you chip the edge, if it goes dull and you just don't know how to resharpen it, the handle might get stains on it. Whatever, there's a lot of different things that can happen. We sharpen and polish our products free for life. So you can either mail it to us or stop into the store, and it's a 5-minute job.
Wow.
And our knives are also warranted 110% for life. So there's no risk in using them. We want them to be used.
So head to their website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us. See what the company has to offer. Stop by Jay's Sporting Goods. They've got a pretty good selection as well. And by the time folks hear this show, you missed a Wednesday Night Live where Kris gave away a knife on the show. And Kris, we've got more things planned in the future, don't we?
Yes, we absolutely.
All right, Kris. Listen, I'll let you get on with your day. I appreciate your time, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Take care, Mike.
Kris Duerson of Rapid River Knife Works, the website rapidriverknifeworks.us. Handmade knives here in Michigan, in the UP, guaranteed for life. And I'm glad to be working with these folks. I got a knife in my pocket right now, but I'll tell you what, pretty soon it's going to be a Rapid River knife. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll talk with Nick Buggia of the Michigan Wildlife Council, see how that campaign is going. In hour number 2, early season trolling on Lake Michigan, a grant program from the DNR, and this week's Ask Avery segment coming up in hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Battle Creek on WBCK, that's 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Carroll on 2 stations, WKYO and WIDL. WKYO is 1360 AM, IDL is 92.1 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ, 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. On the Ground, OTG as it's called, is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website, mucc.org. That's mucc.org. By the way, if you want to save 25% on your MUCC membership, either signing up for the first time or your renewal, if you use the promo code MIKE, all caps, Mike, M-I-K-E, you can save 25%. And I actually did that a couple of weeks ago, used my own promo code and saved myself some money. You know, I'm thinking here that obviously MUCC does an awful lot of work and really carrying the water for us hunters and anglers. But part of their job also is education. I think a big part of their job is education. And that holds true as well with the Michigan Wildlife Council. They were formed several years ago to educate primarily non-hunters and anglers here in Michigan how important it is that we continue to hunt and fish and shoot and trap here in Michigan, to use our dollars, those licensed dollars, to pay for such things so everybody can enjoy it. Nick Buggia is with the Michigan Wildlife Council, their website, and the Here for Generations campaign. I love that idea. Think about this. Here for Generations. Meaning that this outdoor lifestyle that we love so much will continue to be here for generations. The website here for mioutdoors.org. Nick, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good. Well, it's turkey season and the fishing's heating up, so I've been good lately. How are you?
I've been good, but you opened the door. Do you have your bird yet?
No, not yet. I've been a little busy with work, but we kind of got an extended season this year for private landowners, anyways, and so I'm planning to take advantage of that.
That darn work just gets in the way sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you must be talking about ZZ. Now, last year, I think it was, or maybe 2 years ago, but very recently, ZZ, Southern Michigan private land, went from a 2-week season to a 6-week season. That's crazy.
Yeah. And I live and hunt in the thumb. Lucky enough to have access to a small farm, and so that's where I turkey hunt and deer hunt, and I think the expanded season is really, gives opportunities to folks to get out, especially new hunters, whether you're an adult who's hunting for the first time or a kid just getting into it. I think turkey hunting is one of the best entry level hunting experiences you can get. So I think that extended season is going to really help with recruitment, but that's just a personal notion.
Well, and I agree with you, though, about it being a great sport for young hunters or newcomers because you've got the interaction. If you get a day when the birds are gobbling, I mean, there's nothing else like that.
Yep.
Also, Nick, you talked about recruitment and such, and I'm thinking back to last year. I have not seen the numbers for Michigan turkey license sales for this year, but last year they sold out that ZZ. That was 50,000 licenses. You and I have talked about this before, but if there's any good thing to come out of COVID, it was that it gave people an excuse to get involved in the outdoors.
Yeah, and just like last year, again, we're still dealing with some restrictions, and hopefully it gives folks another opportunity to get out in the woods or on the water.
Who would have thought last year we'd still be dealing with it this year?
Not me.
Me neither. So listen, what's on the agenda for the Michigan Wildlife Council and the Here for Generations campaign? What's the focus now?
Yeah, so right now we're kind of in between campaigns, so no real meaty updates, but Memorial Day, moving into the summer, we're going to be launching a new campaign, and the focus is going to kind of move from conservation funding to more of a what hunters and anglers, the direct impact they have on the economy, and how we use hunting and fishing as a management tool to make sure that we have healthy wildlife populations, prevent disease, and all that. So our focus is going to change up. Our messaging is going to change up a little bit from hunters and anglers are the ones that fund the majority of conservation, which is still true and we'll still touch on, and moving to what kind of economic impact they have in the state and how it's really our best management tool to ensure we've got healthy wildlife populations.
Well, I know you folks have had a very deliberate plan right from the beginning. It's also proven to be quite effective and successful. And listen, I appreciate the fact that you guys are out there promoting and defending and encouraging my outdoor heritage. So I keep up the good work, Nick. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
Nick Buggia of the Michigan Wildlife Council, the website here for mioutdoors.org, here for mioutdoors.org. Let's hope that Nick gets that big bird, too, as well. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to head on over to Lake Michigan, talk about some early season trolling for salmon and trout with Adam Knudson. Then Clay Buchanan of the DNR talks about a grant program. And this week's Ask Avery segment asks the question, where are all the turkeys? I've had a lot of people ask me that. Well, I'm gonna pose it to somebody else coming up in hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Yes, indeed. This is the big guy, Mike Avery. Welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. As always, so glad to have you along with us. I really mean that. I hear from people quite a bit, hey, Avery, I was listening to the radio show or the podcast or whatever, and we like what you're doing. And everybody likes to have their ego stroke, but more importantly, I like it when people say that I'm providing the content that you want to hear. I also find it interesting that these days, I don't care where people hear my voice, they assume it's a podcast. Even if they're listening on their local AM or FM radio station, they think it's a podcast. And it's because podcasting is such a ubiquitous term these days. But this show is first and foremost a 3-hour weekly radio show. And I think the best way to listen, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station, because there you get your local news and weather and sports, even your local commercials. Maybe there's something you want to take advantage of. And the local stations get the content of the show before I upload the podcast version of. But it is nice to know that there is a podcast version of the show. If your local affiliate doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, there is a podcast. And that is nothing more than the sound from the radio show made available somewhere other than on your local radio station. Well, then your next question is, well, where do you find it? Excellent question. I like to send people to the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's kind of a clearinghouse for all things Outdoor Magazine and Mike Avery Outdoors. You can also check out the Mike Avery Outdoors Facebook page. It goes up on that page every Sunday evening at 6. The podcast is on Amazon Music. It's on Audible. It's on Twitter. I'm Avery Outdoors on Twitter. It goes up on LinkedIn, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM, Deezer, and Radio.com. And those are the ones that I know of. I'm sure there are other outlets where you can listen to the podcast. And it's crazy, but I also put this show up on YouTube. And it's just the audio. But people listen to the show on YouTube. So that's an option as well. And as long as I'm doing some blatant self-promotion, let's talk about the Outdoor Magazine Podcast Network. Each month, I produce podcasts for Jay's Sporting Goods, Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Killer Food Plots, Polar Craft Boats, and Shadowhunter Blinds. And as we get done recording this week's radio show, I will record another Polar Craft podcast, this time talking about catfishing. I know here in Michigan, catfishing isn't necessarily that big, but it should be. I mean, catfish are a riot to catch, and they're not the bottom-feeding trash fish I used to think they were. Anyway, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, the website. So what's going on this time of year? By the way, welcome to the month of May. Glad to have you along with us here in hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show. Turkey season continues. My turkey season continues. I do not have a bird yet. Of course, I'm out there with my recurve, which does hinder me tremendously. Has some good close encounters yesterday morning as I was in the woods, but nothing down yet. And that's okay. If I shoot when I do, if I don't, I've still had a wonderful experience. I'm jonesing to get the new Angler Quest out on the waters of Saginaw Bay and chase some walleye. I'll be heading down to the Detroit River this week to jig for walleye with Lance Valentine of Walleye 101. There's just great fishing going on across the state right now. I'm thinking right now about Lake Michigan. Some really good early season trolling action. My neighbor Doug was over there last weekend fishing out of Ludington, in fact, and he came home with 5 beautiful lake trout. He wasn't looking for Lakers, but he came home with 5 beautiful Lakers. If you have not fished Lake Michigan, I would really encourage you to give it a try. If you don't have a boat, that's fine. Just hire a charter. But it's really a beautiful body of water. It's big water. It's cold water. It's an adventure. Nobody knows that better than Adam Knudson. Adam is a charter captain. He works out of Hiatus Charters, the website hiatuscharters.com. He's also a podcaster, a very popular podcaster, and he puts his podcasts up on YouTube as well. You can find him on YouTube as Reel to Real Outdoors, and it's Real, the number 2, Real, R-E-E-L, 2, Real Outdoors on YouTube. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Adam, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. How's it going?
Good. Listen, you're kind of an interesting guy, kind of a busy guy, aren't you?
Yeah. Normally very busy this time of year, but with the pandemic, I'm more focused on outdoors and fishing, and it's been good.
Yeah. Have you been on the water recently, or talked to your buddies who've been out there? How is this spring shaping up?
Yeah, so hiatus is in the water. We did a lot of upgrades over the winter, and so we are in the water as of yesterday. But I fished last weekend in a brown trout fishing tournament out of Ludington, and we had a very successful day. The fishing is tremendous right now. It's always this time of year. The lake trout fishing is exceptional, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up fishing brown trout, mainly brown trout. There's like a side tournament within the tournament where you can weigh lake trout. So we went out, fished browns for maybe a couple hours. We caught a 13.3 pound brown.
Wow.
Yeah, very nice fish. Best fish I've caught in probably 5 years. And then we slid out, and in about 2 hours we caught 18 lake trout. We had 5 lake trout that were probably over 11 pounds. We weighed 5 lake trout for 57 pounds in the lake trout division. So just phenomenal fishing. I was fishing with freestyle charters out of Ludington, Captain George Freeman. But yeah, if you can get out on Lake Michigan this time of year, even with a small boat, you get a lot of very calm days, usually in the spring, and the fishing is, we're fishing 50, 60 foot of water for the lake trout, and then right up on the beach in between the sandbars for the brown trout.
You bring up an interesting point, Adam. Yeah, this is the time of year when you don't need that 30-foot tiara to get out there and chase those fish. If you got something that'll float and you pick your days and use your head, you can get out there.
Yeah, and we tend to get a lot of east wind in the springtime. And, in Ludington, being on the east coast of Michigan, an east wind is fairly calm seas. So even if the wind does pick up, as long as it's still out of the east. But, it's Lake Michigan. You have to be intelligent in your decision-making. I have left Ludington and not returned to Ludington before, just because I didn't, the wind came up out of the north, so I went to Poundwater and had somebody come get me with a trailer.
Really?
I mean, those are things you have to, consider. Lake Michigan is definitely a different body of water than some of these smaller inland lakes.
I used to think of Ludington and Manistee in the spring as tremendous brown trout fisheries, and I know there's still that nostalgia, but is the fishery still strong?
Well, they keep planting browns, and the recruitment just hasn't been that good. The returns, the last 5 years has been really pretty tough brown fishing, but the water's been very high. So you have a ton of erosion, and you have very murky water near shore. Has a lot of clay in it. I don't know if that plays a part in that. I've talked with Jay Wesley from the Michigan DNR about this, and we were kind of just, brainstorming ideas on it. And, now the water's down, I would say 18 to 20 inches this year.
Wow.
From last. And it's very, very much needed. But we have a decent amount of browns around. I would say if you went out and said I was going to catch a brown today, that you probably could be successful doing that, where the last 3 or 4 years, I would say that, it's kind of a unicorn thing where you can go look for a unicorn, but you're usually not going to find one.
I want to talk real briefly more about water level. Like, over here in my home body of water, Saginaw Bay, if the water goes down a foot, that's a big deal because I'm only fishing 7 feet of water. Why is a difference of a foot significant out there where you guys are?
I would say that it's primarily erosion. You're getting erosion from the shoreline, and so you have a lot of sediment that's coming in. If you looked at an aerial photo, you would kind of see what I'm talking about. But anytime we get a west wind, it takes 2 or 3 days just for that water to kind of clear back up. Very similar to like how a river gets, chocolate milk when it gets blown out. Same idea, except for it's just wind that can cause it. With us, we don't need the rain to cause that.
Gotcha. We're talking with Captain Adam Knudson. You can find more about him a couple places online. Hiatus Charters is his charter company he's working with. HiatusCharters.com is their website. He's also a podcaster and an online fishing journalist. You can find them on YouTube at Reel to Reel Outdoors. That's Reel, R-E-E-L, the number 2, Reel to Reel Outdoors on YouTube. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show, but when we come back, I want to talk more with Adam, kind of wrap up our conversation. Just talk about his advice on how to take advantage of this early spring trolling. When do they start to turn their attention to kings? What time of year does that happen? And I'm also interested in learning more about what he is doing online, how he got into that part of his job and, how that all developed. So we'll spend some time with Adam after that. Clay Buchanan of the DNR comes along, and then we'll wrap up the hour with this week's Ask Avery segment, asking the question, where are all the turkeys this spring? That's coming up in hour number 2 of Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold WCBY, AM and FM, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Flint on our newest affiliate, 1330 WTRX, Sports Extra. And you can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister, 92.1 WTWS. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning Archery is celebrating their 75th anniversary this year. How cool is that? What a tremendous accomplishment that is. If you're in business, you know how hard sometimes it can be to stay viable and stay strong and stay a leader and stay an innovator, and they've been doing it for 75 years. They started back in 1946 when Roland Boning invented Ferrultite. Now think about this, 1946. He was rubbing shoulders with Fred Bear, Ben Eastman. He was right there with him. He invented Ferrultite to glue broadheads to arrows. At the time, the arrows were maybe just getting into aluminum, but certainly wooden shafts. They continue to come up with new products today for target archers and bow hunters. And again, 75 years. There were several in-person celebrations planned for this. COVID has screwed up their plans a little bit. So keep an eye on the website, boning.com, B-O-H-N-I-N-G, boning.com, to see what the folks at Boning have in store to celebrate this 75th anniversary. Again, congrats to everybody at Michigan-based Boning Archery. We're talking now with Adam Knudson. Adam is a charter captain and a podcaster out of Ludington, on the west coast of Michigan. He fishes Lake Michigan a lot. Adam, how did you go from being a charter captain into your podcasting world?
So I work as a charter captain during the summer, and the rest of the year I work as a technical director and production director for live theaters, so performing arts theaters, that sort of thing. So when we went at the end of our season last year for the theaters, we got shut down due to COVID, and we started doing everything virtually. And so we started to do some productions all through Zoom or through cell phone videos and that sort of thing. So I just was forced to learn how to video edit in about 1 month. And I bought Final Cut Pro, and here we are.
There you go.
Quite a bit later. Yeah, I've always wanted to do it, but I've never had the time or a reason to learn video, and so this has been my I guess it opened the door into taking the outdoor world of my life and putting that into video as well.
Well, I can relate to that. It's my passions are the outdoors and technology and video and telling stories with video and such. So it's nice when you can combine a couple of things that you're really interested in and have some success with it. Yeah.
I've always kind of lived my life as a live sound engineer, and I've been doing live sound for 20 plus years as my primary job. And so making the transition to video obviously was a little bit different, but there's a lot of components that are very similar.
Sure,
and
sure.
I spend a lot of time with Pro Tools on a daily basis anyways, so Final Cut Pro just a little bit different, or whatever video editing software, but it's the same basic concepts.
And if people go to YouTube, they can look for Reel to Reel Outdoors, and they can find you there. Let's talk a little bit more about the fishery out there right now. Lake browns are wonderful, steelhead are wonderful, Lakers are wonderful, but it's the kings that really get people's attention. When do they usually show up, Adam?
So generally in Ludington area, we start to see kings. We'll start to see kings all through the month of May, but we'll get a big push of kings right around Memorial Weekend. It's usually within a week before or after Memorial Weekend when we see them. And they're here for, 2 or 3 weeks. They'll be within reach of our port, and then we kind of settle back in. And then our big, I think, like our resident kings, the kings that come to run the Pere Marquette River, the Little Manistee and Big Manistee rivers, they show up in usually mid-July.
So how do you target these fish differently? I know you're trolling browns up in the skinny water up by the sandbars, but Lakers, kings, steelhead. I mean, is the presentation different, or you'll catch a variety using the same setup? So
the browns, we're generally fishing stick baits, Rapalas, and some Berkeley stuff, some bombers, those kind of baits, floaters, countdowns, husky jerks, that sort of thing. Similar to all small bill. We're only fishing in 5 to maybe 15 feet of water, and we're running those on clean birds, and then we run one colors with spoons. We fish a lot of walleye spoons over here for browns, mini streaks, warrior spoons, DW SS and walleye spoons, moonshine walleye spoons, and their half series and the smaller stuff. As the water warms, we generally use less stick baits and more spoons. Now, when we fish the lake trout, we usually will slide out from 35 to 75 feet of water is generally where they are, somewhere in there. And it can change daily. All the water temperatures are the same. There's no thermocline. There's no reason for those fish to hold at a certain thermocline or certain bottom temperature, because it's all basically the same. They just move around and follow the gobies and suspended bait, being smelt and alewife. So we'll fish those very similar to the way that we would fish them in the summer. Dodgers, spin doctors, cowbells, spinning glows, whirligigs, those sort of things on or near the bottom. We generally don't put as much on the bottom when we're fishing that shallow. I think that your baits are too close together. Your divers are too close together. They're not separated by 100 feet or so. So I think you'll be more productive. Less is more usually this time of year. And then, we'll bounce our downrigger, usually just one downrigger this time of year. And then we'll run spoons on a kind of a suspended bait fish spread. So we'll run spoons, maybe like a 5, 7, 10 color in 50 to 60 foot of water. And those will produce as well. Those are usually regular size spoons. Some mags as well. You do have, your mature alewives that will start heading towards harbors where they'll run and spawn. So there are some big alewives around. Usually not a ton quite yet, but those numbers will come up in the next month as the water warms up.
You mentioned cowbells. I'm fascinated by that. Something that caught fish 40 years ago is still being used out there today.
Yeah, we, as of a few years ago, we were still using a lot of the Lure Jensens and the West Davis cowbells and lake trolls. As we've increased our speed because we've started to use spin doctors instead of dodgers. Spin doctors, you control a very large variety of speeds, and they still produce fish. Where dodger, there's definitely a limitation on the top speed that you can go with a dodger. So our philosophy is kind of cover more water. So if you're going 0.2 of a mile an hour faster, you're covering 0.2 of a mile more every hour that you're trolling. So we're using these spin doctors. The cowbells that we've been using are actually the cowbells from Moonshine. They seem to troll pretty well, even at like 2.2, 2.3 on our fishhawk speed. So that's our down speed. They seem to do okay even at those speeds. I haven't been as successful with the Lure Jensen stuff going that fast, but we'll keep them honest. We'll keep a set of cowbells down quite often.
Let's talk a little bit more about this difference in speed. Your sending unit that measures your speed below the surface, compare that to your surface speed. Are there days when it's actually significantly different?
So Ludington, if you look at the structure, we're basically stuck between 2 points. And it's actually more like 3 points because you could add Point Betsy as the third point to the north. So we have these big bowls of water, and they're constantly moving. We have more current in Ludington than I have seen anywhere on Lake Michigan. I think if you're in the southern basin of Lake Michigan, Michigan City, St. Joe, South Haven, they don't get the current that we have here. And the same with like Saginaw Bay. The current is not that strong. But so a lot of guys will use their GPS speed as what they're following.
Yeah.
In Ludington, you might be going a mile an hour faster to have the same speed at your control, depending on which direction you're going. So in Ludington, direction and in speed are tremendously valuable information because the current is it's crazy. The current is very, very strong.
Man, if you just used your GPS, you think you're in the sweet spot. The engine sounds right. It's right where you want it to be. It feels good. And you could be a mile an hour off. That's a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, people that use their GPS speed, I think in our area and only use GPS, don't have a probe, they'll find that they'll catch fish in one direction only. Where with using our probe, we can usually get fish in both directions.
Because you're adjusting for that current.
Yeah, but we might be doing 3.5 going one direction and 2.0 going the other direction to achieve the same down speed.
That's crazy. Wow. I knew there was a current. I didn't know it was that much. Listen, Adam, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate your time. I'll send people to a couple of websites. HiatusCharters.com. And then go to Reel Outdoors on YouTube, and you can see Adam and more what he's all about. And your season now, are you booking trips now? You taking clients now?
Yeah, we're ready to get going. We have some trips actually coming up. But yeah, they can contact us, HiatusCharters.com.
All right, head to that website, HiatusCharters.com. You can book a trip to get out there chasing Browns, Lakers, Steelhead, and Kings out of Ludington with Captain Adam Knudson on Hiatus Charters, and check out Reel to Reel Outdoors on YouTube. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, Clay Buchanan of the DNR talks about a new wildlife, I think it's a habitat grant that you can apply for and maybe improve the habitat on your property, and it won't cost you anything. Coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name's Mike Avery. Glad to have you along with us as we continue our weekly celebration into the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan. You can hear the show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC AM and FM. That's 1450 AM and 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Rapidriverknifeworks. We talked with Kris Duerson of Rapid River Knives in the first hour of this week's show. Really glad to be working with these people. Custom-made, handmade in the UP. Check them out online. The website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us. I want to turn our attention now to Clay Buchanan. He's with the DNR and got some information for us. Clay, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, listen, a real pleasure. Tell me what's going on in your world.
Yeah, so we just recently opened up the Wildlife Habitat Grant Program, and that's available to basically anyone in the state. Really looking at wildlife species and habitat for those species. Most of it's focused on terrestrial, so on the ground, not in the water. We do a little bit of water work, but that tends to go to other grants. But really focused on game species across the state. So happy to talk to folks and happy to have applications. So
this is for private land?
Yeah. For private land, public land, and kind of spread across the whole state. So if you have a few acres, that is eligible. I will say that some larger projects. So if you can tie some of those private lands together, with some neighbors, work with folks from the conservation district, work with your local biologist, your wildlife biologist from the wildlife division. You can tie some of those things together. Those folks have scored better. So, we're looking for that big public benefit.
Well, yeah, biggest bang for the buck.
Right.
So what
people out and hunting, right?
Absolutely. So what type of projects, Claire, are we talking planting trees? We talking putting in food plots? I mean, what is this all about?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So all of the above, really. It's been a lot recently about, native grasses and, pollinators are big, but that's also great for deer. It's great for bunnies. It's great for songbirds, turkeys, pheasants, all of those things use grasslands. Tree planting. We really like to see, mass trees, soft, hard mass, so we're talking acorns to fruit trees. Those things getting put out on the land. Really good food sources for lots of things, including deer and turkeys. So those types of things. Food plots are also eligible. What we like to see is, if you're going to do food plots, is to add a couple of those other things in too. Some native grasses, some trees. Those longer term. So you're getting more than that 1 or 2 year. Again, sure. that biggest bang, right?
Yeah.
So you want to see those things extend. And so any of those things, especially if they're on the ground, we have done a little bit of wetland stuff, but that costs more money. So if we can get more acres out there, that's kind of what we're looking for.
So how does this work? How do I have to apply? Obviously, where do I get the application?
Right. The easiest way, even if you just want to Google it, you can say, Michigan DNR grants, and it'll bring up a page of all kinds of grants. And the Wildlife Habitat Grant is usually down in the right corner. The other way to go is to the DNR website, the main page, and there's a buy and apply tab at the top. Same place you go to get a license, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a little button under that. There is apply for grants. And again, it takes you back to that DNR grants page, and the Wildlife Habitat Grant will be right down at the side. If you look under that, there's more information, including a handbook. And so the handbook is kind of like your manual. It's got all the goals. It's got all the priorities for each region. It's got those kind of things. It's got contact numbers for myself. It's got contact numbers for regional folks in the wildlife division. So you can get more information, specific to your area. And then, there's requirements and all those, all the paperwork kind of stuff, that none of us really like to do, but we have to, right?
Yeah. What's the deadline? What's the timetable on this?
Sure. It is June 4th.
Oh, okay.
So you got a little bit of time, but get in there and look soon and make sure, you got to make sure the thing's going to fit what you want to do.
And is this the type of thing where you get a lot of requests and you always have more requests than you can fill? Or is this one of those hidden things that actually you end up with money that you're looking to give people at the end of the process?
Right. So far, we have had more requests than we've had money. But it's really fluctuated annually. So, some years we get way more than we have, and some years it's just a little bit more. So it's both of those. It's kind of hidden, but also well known in some years.
Two real quick questions. I'll put them together. Sure. How much money gets put out, and how much does the average person get, the average group?
Right. So it's about $1 million a year, and the average is somewhere around $75,000.
So it's significant.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
There's quite a few of those that are down around the 17,000 to 36,000. So we like to see those projects. And then there's a few of those bigger organizations that get more.
Clay, appreciate the information. Go to the website, michigan.gov/DNR. Click on the Buy and Apply tab. As Clay said, it's the same link you just used to get your fishing licenses and your turkey tag. Michigan.gov/DNR. Clay Buchanan, appreciate your time. Thanks for the update. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment, talking with the guy who just retired from the DNR, asking him where all the turkeys are. Well, I'm not the only one asking either. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Tawas on WIOS, AM and FM, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM, and you can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by my friends from Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. This week's Ask Avery segment is something I've been noticing, just anecdotally, that I don't feel like I'm seeing as many turkeys. I don't feel like there's as many birds around. You drive down the road, I'm not seeing the flocks. I'm not seeing the strutters that I normally do. But that's nothing. That's just me anecdotally. But then I'm starting to get these reports from people across the state. It's pretty consistent. Avery, where are the birds? We're not seeing the number of turkeys. Brian Feeney sent me an email, and I'll excerpts here real quick. He said he was hunting up by Traverse City, Interlaken. They hunted hard Saturday, Sunday, Monday. 0 birds, no tracks, no response to calls. A buddy of his who was out there 4 days a week, he and his brother hunted, drove 5 hours all the way east to Grayling. They saw 1 hen. And a buddy of his, another guy I was talking to said the same thing. Now, these are out of the Traverse City area for the most part. But I'm hearing these reports consistently from across the state. So who knows more about turkeys in Michigan than Al Stewart? Nobody. You know Al. He just retired about 3 weeks ago, and I'm not even letting him enjoy his retirement. I get him back on the line already. Al, welcome back. How are you?
Hey, it's great to talk with you, Mike. Thanks for the kind words. And, well, you know me. I enjoy talking about wild turkeys, and I am a retired wildlife biologist with some background in wild turkeys.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit, yeah. So listen, my buddy Brian, who, he's got his bachelor's in zoology. He did take some ornithology classes. He doesn't have your chops, but he's a little more than the average guy, a lot more than I would know. And he's asking the question, what's going on? He says, is it an avian virus? Is it predators? Is it weather? Or from your perspective, from a statewide perspective, is this not the situation?
Oh, no, I think, we have fewer turkeys right now. The person with the ego inside me would say, well, Al retired and there's no turkeys left, but that's just a joke. But the reality of it is, we've seen fewer turkeys over the last, 5, 6, maybe even 7 years, to the point that within the Midwest, as wildlife biologists, turkey, I was part of a wild turkey consortium to look at why were turkey numbers going down. And the eastern turkey population, wild turkey population, has been going down. it's not endangered or anything. There's still lots of birds. And so all the people got together and tried to determine what was happening. And to put it into perspective, what really made it come to the forefront was a state like Missouri. It had a 40% decline in their turkey numbers.
Wow.
So what deer hunting is in Michigan, turkey hunting is in Missouri. So when you see a 40% downturn, people, turkey hunters, just people in general get, really concerned.
So before we run out of time, Al, we got 2 minutes left. So what's going on?
So the reality of what's going on is much of it is weather related. Cold, wet springs are not good for, upland game birds in any respect, whether it's a pheasant, a grouse, or, a wild turkey. And we've had some crazy weather during the nesting season. You can think just last year where we had so much rain during that period that several dams and communities got flooded. The dams washed out, the communities got flooded. And that wasn't just in a localized area. That was throughout, a big chunk of Michigan. So I think that's what's going on. But at the same time, people read in the newspaper, oh, gee, there's some turkeys in Traverse City. There's some turkeys in Charlevoix. Boy, everybody's talking about turkeys. But the reality of it is, in the bigger, larger landscape, I think turkey numbers are down. They have been down, and we continue to look at it. I don't think, it's necessarily one thing. I don't think it's like West Nile virus is killing all the turkeys. But it, may have some impact. But we're not getting, our wildlife pathology lab, the DNR's wildlife pathology lab, is not getting, a whole bunch of wild turkeys that have West Nile.
Will the numbers come back up, or should we get used to this smaller flock, and this is just the way it's going to be?
Well, I think numbers will come back up. When you put a new critter like a wild turkey into great habitat, they tend to exponentially expand, then they flatten off, and then they start to kind of bump up and down based on nesting conditions, weather, and that. So when you talk about predators, Missouri's number one in the world for wild turkey harvest and population production, and they have coyotes, they have predators, so
yep.
It's all of this. I always relate it more
Al,
to
listen,
cold, wet springs.
Cold, wet springs. Al, I got to let you go. Sorry to interrupt your retirement, but I appreciate your time. Thanks to the folks at Security Credit Union for helping to make each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. Thank you, Al. Appreciate it. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, Richard P. Smith right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we now, as you're hearing this, are in the month of May. Time really is flying, isn't it? And I feel like the older I get, the faster the months and even years go by. But the month of May, a great month. There's turkey hunting, there's fishing, don't forget about this. May is also the month here in Michigan to apply for your Michigan Elk Tag and your Michigan Bear Tag. You know I'm going to be doing that. When I think about bears, I always think about Richard P. Smith. In my mind, Richard is the most knowledgeable black bear expert that I know. And there's a lot of other things he's very well versed on as well. And we hadn't talked to Richard for a while, so it seems like a good time to bring him back on the show, to ask him to be back on the show. And he has graciously agreed once again. Richard, welcome back. How are you? Richard, I'll ask you that again. How you doing, buddy?
fine.
Fine. So listen, I know you've been working on a lot of different things. You've been cranking out a lot of different content. Where do you want to start? What's on your mind this time around?
Well, wolves are a very hot topic right now.
That's for sure.
The hunt that was held in Wisconsin during February generated a lot of news coverage. And, of course, as you know, wolves were taken off the Endangered Species Act on January 4th of this year, which was long overdue. And it's generated interest, a lot of interest among Michigan hunters, especially in the UP here, to have some type of hunt here or a trapping season to help manage our wolves.
And there's no doubt if we can get the trappers involved, that'll help. But I was really surprised at how the dog hunters in Wisconsin really got the job done over there, the houndsmen.
Yeah, and I think that surprised everybody, Mike. In previous hunts, hound hunters, Wisconsin had 3 hunts prior to the one this February. And in those previous hunts, hound hunters had taken some wolves, but not such a high percentage of them. They took more than 80% of the wolves harvested during the February hunt. But it was, I think, because this was the first time they hunted during the winter. The 3 previous wolf hunts in Wisconsin ended by December, and they opened in October, ended in December. So this was the first time they've actually had a winter wolf hunt, and they had ideal snow conditions, which made hunting with hounds more effective.
Richard, where are we at as far as having a wolf hunt here in Michigan? Is it in the hands of our state people now, or is it still at a higher level?
Well, it's in the hands of the Department of Natural Resources. They want to update their wolf management plan, do a public opinion survey, and I don't think any of that is necessary. I think we have enough information on our current wolf population that we could have a limited hunt, certainly without endangering the wolf population, and better manage the animals. And more importantly, put some fear in the animals of humans.
Put some fear in them. Absolutely. We've talked about this before, but when I've seen wolves in Ontario, they are scared to death of people because they're hunted, and that's the way it should be.
Right. Exactly. I agree.
You know, I agree with you, too, that I don't, my sense is the department doesn't have the heart right now for a wolf hunt. They just don't seem to want to push for it.
Well, I think the bottom line is the current administration, and politics is too involved in wildlife management today. The current administration isn't supportive of a wolf hunt, and there's a definite political connection in the department. From the governor's office, they appoint the director, they appoint the commission, the governor does. So there's a definite political connection that's unfortunate.
Didn't we pass laws that called for sound scientific wildlife management based only on science?
We certainly did, but they're being ignored.
Is that what it comes down to?
Exactly. And another perfect example is a couple months ago, the Natural Resources Commission acted on recommendations from the Department of Natural Resources on some important changes to deer hunting regulations in the UP. And they shot down all 3, which would have allowed bow hunting, does legal for bow hunters UP-wide, would have made crossbows legal during December in the UP, and would have eliminated hunter's choice regulations in the UP. They ignored sound science in the department recommendations, and the commission shot down all 3 of those changes, which were unfortunate.
How can it be legal to hunt with a crossbow earlier in the season, but illegal in the late season? What's the? I can't even wrap my brain around that.
There is no sound scientific data to support not allowing crossbows. It's a political issue. It's a social issue. That's the bottom line.
I have heard people say, yeah, we voted this in that it would be based on science. And then people are trying to do an end run saying, well, social science is a science too. So we have to take that into account when we make these decisions, which when I voted for it, that wasn't my intent.
nor mine, and nor most of the people who voted for it. It was very clear in the discussion surrounding Proposal G when it was passed, and the Scientific Fish and Wildlife Management Act pushed by MUCC, and all of the discussion surrounding those passage of those was sound biological science.
So, bottom line is going to be a well, you think?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so, unfortunately.
But, of course, Wisconsin, Michigan aren't the only states dealing with wolves. I read something you wrote the other day about a hunter killed or somebody killed a wolf out west.
Yeah, in Nebraska. In that it's hard to wrap my mind around that. Wolves that disperse from the UP or Wisconsin or Minnesota, where they aren't hunted, if they dispersed into Nebraska, they could be shot year-round. But we can't hunt them here in the UP. It just makes no sense.
So somebody actually shot a wolf out there?
2 wolves were shot in Nebraska during a span of 3 months that dispersed from the Great Lakes region.
Oh, my goodness.
And their coyote hunting regulations apply to wolves in Nebraska and South Dakota.
Huh.
So we need to drive them to those states so they can be managed.
Oh, that is crazy. That is crazy. Hey, listen, it's May. It's time to apply for our bear and elk tags. I got a feeling you'll be applying for both.
Yes. Well, I will not be applying for an elk permit because I got an elk permit years ago, and I killed a nice bull that qualified for state record. So I no longer qualify.
Is that
for an elk.
Is that a lifetime deal then? If you get a bull, you're done for life?
Yes, it is lifetime.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
But I'm more than happy with that. I don't have a problem with that.
A cow license isn't the same way, is it?
Well, I've heard of people getting multiple cow licenses over a period of years. So it may not apply to cows. But certainly I think for bulls it's a lifetime deal.
Hey, here's a story for you, and I got this from a guy who claimed it actually happened to his wife. They got, she got a bull elk tag. I mean, that's the holy grail, right? They get there to the hunt, and they're told, by the way, we need to adjust the quota. Your bull tag is now a cow-only tag.
Whoa.
That's what I said. Whoa. And I questioned him extensively because I thought this just doesn't make any sense at all. He and his wife both swore up and down that's exactly what happened.
That's unfortunate.
That'd be heartbreaking, wouldn't it?
Yes.
So, listen, you're one of those guys who is extremely successful in getting tags, bear tags, if not every year, almost every year. How do you do it, Richard?
Well, I apply in the UP. All of the UP bear management units except Drummond Island have 3 separate hunts, bear hunts, to increase the number of participants. There's the most competition and the fewest permits for the first hunt and the second hunt. So I apply for the third hunt, which has more permits available than the first and second because success is lower and there's less competition for them. However, they reduce permit numbers again. There'll probably be a time that I won't be successful in the third hunt drawing because of the reduction of permits, which blows my mind also. There's no reason to reduce. We should be increasing bear license in the UP just like they did in the Northern Lower.
Hang tight, Richard. We got to take a break, but I will tell you, based on your advice last year, because I couldn't get into Quebec bear hunting, I couldn't get into Ontario bear hunting, and I really wanted to hunt. Michigan is, of course, my first choice. You suggested I apply for the third season, and I got it. And I only had about 3 points, so I'm going to do the same thing this year. After the break, I will ask you if you think there's a chance I'm going to get that tag or not. We're talking with outdoor writer, black bear and whitetail expert Richard P. Smith. His website is richardpsmith.com. That's richardpsmith.com. A lot of questions for Richard, including his thoughts on we know his thoughts on the reduction of bear tags. I think you now cannot use barrels on state land as well. We'll get his thoughts on that and more advice on how you can maximize your chances of getting a Michigan bear tag, even though the number that they're going to let out is down. That's more with Richard P. Smith coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WMLQ, that's 97.7 FM. And you can hear us in Newberry on WNBOI, 1450 AM. Newberry is where I hope to be bear hunting again this fall with my buddy Johnny Bowler. Going to apply for the third season. We'll see what happens. I hunted there just last year. I wonder if I can get a tag again. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by my friends from Reader Landscaping. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. Your nature, our nurture. Right now they're talking about how to fix your lawn with bare patches, those spots that just don't look good after after wintertime. It's just they didn't green up right. A spring checklist, opening your sprinkler system, getting the water features going, spraying the trees, trimming the trees, fertilizing the yard, putting insecticide down. And it's not too early to start thinking about those summer container gardens. What a great way to have a garden. You don't have to have a big piece of land to put a garden. You just put them in a container and all the vegetables that most people would need. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. While you are online, I would encourage you to head over to Richard P. Smith's website. It is richardpsmith.com. Noted outdoor writer, whitetail expert, and black bear expert. And Richard, I'll ask you again here. Based on your advice, I got a tag last year for the third season. I loved it. I'd like to do the same this year. What are my odds of getting back-to-back tags?
I think they're excellent, Mike. However, the fact that you had 3 preference points last year worked in your favor. Probably not too many people with that many preference points applied for the third hunt.
Yeah.
But normally I'm successful without any preference points in drawing. I hunt the Baraga Bear Management Unit. I've been drawing every year with no preference points. So I think you still have an excellent chance. One difference is that Newberry unit being the first bear management unit in the UP north of the bridge, a lot of people from downstate do apply for that unit. That may reduce your chances slightly of getting that third season tag, but you still have a good chance.
Yeah, I was thinking if I went further west, my odds would really increase. And that's where you end up hunting, the far western UP, isn't it, Richard?
Right, the Baraga unit, which is the northwest.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, I want to hunt with Johnny Bowler again. I'm really hoping that I can. I absolutely love bear hunting. And the fact that we can't get into Canada, I mean, Quebec and Ontario, I feel so bad for my friends up there. This is going to be the second year in a row, Richard, that they've lost this income from Michigan hunters and anglers.
I understand that, and that's unfortunate because they have so many bears in Canada. They could use the help of hunters from the U.S. to help manage those populations.
Yeah. It's a whole different ballgame up there. I mean, they're just overrun with bears.
Right.
Down here now, I do find this interesting, though. You and I have talked about this several times, about the bear population. Whether or not it's growing, it is expanding geographically for sure. Just 2 weeks ago, there was a bear killed on I-75 just north of Flint.
Right. And there was a bear live trapped in Traverse City a week or so ago that had been in a neighborhood there for since last fall. And they finally were successful in trapping by using bird seed that the animal had been feeding on in the neighborhood. They used sweets originally, and they weren't able to catch them. I
thought it was illegal to feed bears, to bait bears.
Well, they're bird feeders.
I'm just kidding. So listen, what are the changes in store for Michigan bear hunters this year?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, bait barrels will no longer be legal on state-managed lands in the future, which I think is a good change. I don't think it was a good move to allow them in the first place because they found out that there was a lot of people not following the regulations, not marking the barrels, not using them properly in the first place. So, unfortunately, though, one of the regulations that went into effect when bait barrels were legalized on public land remains in effect on private land where barrels are still legal, and that's the hole sizes in barrels. Prior to 2019 or whatever it was that barrels became legal on state-managed land, there were no restrictions on hole sizes. Granted, they needed to have some control on hole sizes because some bears were getting stuck in holes that were too big. But now there's a limit of 1-inch hole sizes on barrels on private land, and that doesn't allow the use of some baits because the hole's too small.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out why this was a factor, but now I'm getting what you're saying.
Yeah, if you've got a hole that's large enough for a small bear to get its head in, sometimes they get stuck in the barrel. So it's necessary to have some restriction on the hole sizes. I've hunted in Canada a lot. They use barrels with open tops. Mm-hmm. Secure the barrel to a tree. It's excellent for judging the size of the bears with the barrel, and you can use a lot of bait at one time without having to bring bait every day or so.
Richard, it occurs to me as we're having this conversation that you and I mean, we understand this whole concept of baiting and barrels and such, but to somebody who doesn't, they might hear this and say, well, that's not a very sporting way to hunt bears.
Right. That's a common misconception about this hunting method, but it is actually a very ethical way of bear hunting because bears spend a lot of time in thick habitat where they're difficult to see. Without baiting, it would be in the habitat here in the UP and the state and Canada. It would be very difficult to see bears without baiting. Baiting draws bears into an area where they're visible to hunters at a known distance, and it helps hunters identify animals that are legal to harvest. Like in Michigan and most places, females with cubs and cubs are protected. By having the opportunity to lure bears into an area where you can observe them clearly, you can identify legal bears versus bears that are protected. And additionally, it increases the chances of making clean kill on animals that are legal to harvest.
I get so many comments on my YouTube videos from people who claim they are hunters that, this is lazy and unethical. You should be out stalking these things or something. But man, if you relied on, like in Ontario there or even Michigan, I guess, to stalk a bear, you wouldn't kill enough animals to manage the population, I don't think.
No. Pennsylvania is an excellent example. Pennsylvania has some of the highest bear hunter numbers in the country because they don't allow the use of bait or they don't allow the use of dogs. They sell 100,000 bear licenses, but a very small percentage of those hunters are successful every year because they don't have access to those hunting methods.
What is the story about the size of Michigan's bear population? I hear you and others saying, hey, we've got a good, healthy, strong population, maybe even growing. And yet, like the Michigan Bear Hunters Association says, no, that's not the case. We don't, they lobby the DNR not to let out more tags each year. I don't understand this.
Well, I don't understand it either because it's very clear the bear population has been increasing since 2012 when permit numbers were drastically reduced. The current method being used by the DNR to estimate bear numbers is tied too closely to the annual harvest. They use harvest figures to estimate what the current population is by plugging hunting effort and harvest into computer models. The unfortunate part about that is when you have a high harvest, the computer model spits out a number, a high population. When that harvest goes down, perhaps there's abundant natural food supply that has nothing to do with bear numbers, but the harvest is reduced when there's abundant natural foods. It'll show a reduced bear population. Perfect example, in 2018, the DNR came out with an estimate of the UP bear population being close to 11,000 bears, and we had a high harvest the previous year. But then in 2019, they rewrote the whole population estimate and said we had less than 10,000 bears that are a year old or older because we had a lower harvest that year. And their numbers are 2 years behind the actual population because they rely on 1 year's harvest figures before they can make an estimate for the following year.
It's aside from that, the politics, the numbers, the discussions, I am so hooked on bear hunting, and thank you for helping me to get this way. And it's such a treat, right? If you want to hunt deer in Michigan, you know you can get a tag over the counter. Same thing with turkeys, a small game, whatever. But there's something special about this bear tag. It's a draw. It's not guaranteed. It's not like the holy grail of an elk tag, but it's still a big deal to get a Michigan bear tag. Right,
but one disadvantage of the way it's currently being handled to determine the number of bear licenses to issue each year is it's discouraging a lot of hunters. Some hunters, like in the Lower Peninsula, have to wait 10 or more years to draw a license. Some get discouraged and drop out. That's not good to lose hunter interest in bear hunting. And one of the ways they determine the number of tags to issue is the 3 previous years' hunting success. They average out the hunting success of the previous years to determine how many bears are going to be harvested. Well, we have a growing bear population, which increases success, but they're reducing tag numbers because of that higher success ratio. And it's the opposite of what it should be. We have more bears out there. That's why hunters are killing more and have higher success ratios. We need to issue more licenses to get more people out there enjoying this type of recreation, enjoying bear hunting like I like to do, like you like to do, like many other hunters like to do.
Richard, it's always a pleasure, and I appreciate you jumping on this week and reminding folks that May is the time to apply for that Michigan bear tag.
Great. Well, good luck in the drawing this year, Mike.
Thank you. Same to you, and we'll stay in touch. Richard P. Smith, the website is richardpsmith.com, richardpsmith.com. One more time, if you want to apply for a Michigan bear or an elk tag, you have the month of May to do this. Both of those are drawings. They're limited quota hunts. You have a far better chance of getting a Michigan bear tag than you do a Michigan elk tag, but neither one is a guarantee. And don't forget, there's always the option of the pure Michigan hunt. Now, that won't get you in the woods for this fall. No, it'll be next year if you were to win that. But, man, if you win that, you get a bull elk tag. You get your choice of any bear hunt, any area, any season, and much more. So don't forget, don't let it get to be June and you didn't apply for your Michigan bear or elk tag. Again, I'm going to apply for the 3rd season in the Newberry District. If I can get it, I'm hunting bears with Johnny Bowler. If I don't, I'm going to be hunting deer with Johnny Bowler. So it's a win-win for me all the way around. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Kevin Vistisen from the Deer Hunter podcast has reopened the controversy over Mitch Rompola and that potential world record buck right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM. You can hear us in the Sioux on ESPN 1400 WKNW. And you can hear us in the old Tri-Cities, now called the Great Lakes Bay region, in Saginaw on WSGW AM and FM 790 AM 100.5 FM. I am in the studios of WSGW right now. While I'm here, of course, we call it the Outdoor Magazine Studio. Here with Pat Johnston, doing a wonderful job as always. Pat's already bailed me out a couple of times this week. Pat and I do always and certainly appreciate it. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Wilds Heating and Cooling, plumbing, heating, cooling, air conditioning, anything you need to keep your house, the mechanics running smoothly, to keep you warm, dry, comfortable, furnace work, duct work, sump pumps, air conditioning, you name it. The folks from Wilds can help you out, as they have for me at 2 different houses over more like 25 years now. Check them out online at wildsplumbingandheating.com. That's wildsplumbingandheating.com. A few weeks ago, I got an interesting email from a guy named Kevin Vistisen of Deer Hunter Podcast. He said, Mike, I am looking at the concept of Mitch Rompola and that potential world record buck, and I'm opening this Pandora's box again, and I'd like to interview you. I couldn't pass that opportunity up because the Deer Hunter Podcast is one of the most popular podcasts out there, and Kevin does a great job. So I said, yes, let's do it. As you are listening to this radio show right now, the podcast is now available, and Kevin is here to talk about that. Kevin, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. I am feeling fortunate I have the opportunity to talk with you for a few minutes here today.
Well, it's not as long as a conversation as we had for your podcast for sure, but tell me, Kevin, what made you want to open this thing back up again?
A couple specific things. One, we were approaching our 200th episode, and I wanted to do something a little different, a little special for our audience. For those that don't know, we kind of took a different approach with our platform. Our podcast specifically is funded solely through a Patreon page from our audience. So they chip in a couple dollars every month so that we have the ability to pay for the web hosting services, the data hosting services, all the overhead that goes with having a podcast platform. And I'm extremely grateful for that. So I wanted to give our listening audience something back for our 200th episode. And so I got the gears turning, and I thought, what's something that I could do? Obviously, when I started doing a hunting podcast, there weren't a ton of them. There was maybe a handful, and that's exploded in the 5 years that we've been doing it. It might have went from there being 20 hunting podcasts to now there being, there's hundreds. I'm sure of it. So I wanted to do something kind of unique, and our core of our audience is Midwest, but specifically Michigan downloads our podcast more than any other state. So I thought the anytime that I had ever posted anything about the Rompola buck and about Mitch Rompola, it had a ton of interaction versus anything else on social media. So I knew that there was interest from a wide array of people out there on this topic. And I thought, you know what, I have pretty good resources and pretty good contacts now in doing this. And I'm going to utilize that, and I'm going to put together the most extensive research piece that has been done here in modern day, I think, to look back on this and try to get some sort of a resolve, or at a minimum, bring our listening audience in and get them as educated on this. Because a lot of times you hear a lot of barstool conversation around this topic, and a lot of it couldn't be further from the truth. So I wanted to try to separate some of the facts from the fiction.
Did you come up with an answer? Did you definitively answer the question?
Yes and no. Yes and no. It's going to come down to every individual taking in the information set and then making their own evaluation. I do believe in my heart that only one person, as of now, knows if that story is truthful or not, and that is the man that claims he shot that animal, Mitch Rompola. I don't know if a court of law could prove it one way or another. Obviously, Mitch could make a conscious decision to come forward and meet the requirements met by everyone that's asked him to meet. That's obviously what puts him under the amount of suspicion that he is that when he is confronted or was confronted and asked to basically put up, he didn't. And to this day, that plagues that story and puts a lot of skepticism around it. So I don't know. I don't know that anyone other than Mitch at this point knows where the truth and the fiction line actually comes together.
Kevin, where can we hear this?
So anywhere that you would listen to podcast, Apple Podcasts, Android, I would say Spotify. Spotify and Apple Podcasts are our two most user-friendly sites. I will be putting this on YouTube as well. I don't get around to doing that for all our episodes, but because I know that this is going to be wildly searched, I'm going to put that up for people as well. DeerHunterPodcast.com is essentially where you can find the links to all of our content, and then as far as social media goes.
Perfect, Kevin. Got to let you go. Kevin Vistisen of Deer Hunter Podcast. You can find this at DeerHunterPodcast.com. I enjoyed being part of this. I think it's an interesting project. Check it out and let us know what you think about this. We'll take a break and wrap it all up with Wild Game Chef Dave Miner right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. Man, this 3 hours has flown, hasn't it, Pat? I think because there's a few more guests in here this week, this 3 hours has really flown by. And I appreciate you being along with us here on the show. Also appreciate my good friend, wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner, joining us each week to wrap up each week's show with a wonderful, tasty wild game recipe. And as we are recording the show, we always wrap this up. This is always just before lunchtime. And it makes me really hungry to hear these. David, my friend, work your magic once again. What do you have for us this week?
Well, I've got 3 ingredients that are springtime favorites. We got a wild turkey breast, morel mushrooms, fiddlehead out in full force.
I know. I'm in the woods. I've seen the fiddleheads now coming up. What is the trick? When do I want to get those?
Well, you can use your technique of whenever you bend them over, like you would asparagus. When you pick asparagus, wherever it breaks, that's the tender part. You want to catch them before they leaf out. The name fiddlehead ferns looks like the head of a violin, That's why they call them fiddleheads like that, because they're kind of curved over a little bit. So as you're picking them, you break them off, bend them over. Wherever they break, that's nice and tender. You want to take those and put them in a sink with cold water, enough to float them, and you kind of rinse them down. You might want to do that a couple times because they usually grow where there's a lot of sand, And the same thing with morel mushrooms. I like to cut them in half and then rinse them because I'm going to use them right away. Normally, I would not add any kind of water or liquid to the mushrooms until you're just ready to use them because they'll have a tendency to soak up. So you're going to take the fresh turkey breast. You're going to cut it across the grain about maybe 3/4 of an inch, the turkey slices across the grain. And then you want to slice them up kind of like French fries. You want to do about an inch and then maybe 2 inches long. And you want to soak them at least an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours maybe, in some diced garlic, diced fresh ginger, soy sauce, and some sesame seed oil. So now that you've got all of this preparation done, you could use red pepper, green pepper, yellow pepper, red onion, anything kind of a stir-fry vegetable that you like, or you can buy it. You can get it fresh or frozen. At the restaurant and myself personally, we make large batches of stir-fry, so that's what we do. So what you want to do is drop the fiddlehead ferns in boiling water for maybe a minute. Cool them down. So now, in a wok or a really large frying pan, you want to put the meat in, and then you add your oil as you're going to saute this up. Kind of saute it around real good for 2 or 3 minutes, kind of brown it off a little bit. Take that out. You can actually leave that in if you want. You could add all these vegetables in there. And if you like a little bit of zing to it, I would dice up some jalapeno pepper in there. So if it looks like you need a little more oil or a little liquid, add the toasted sesame seed oil. And you want to put in, you can buy canned or jarred turkey gravy, You need about a half or so of a jar of that. Keep moving this around, and the flavor and the smell is just going to be killer. So when this is done, because you're marinating that turkey breast, and you want to realize that it's partially chemically cooked due to the marinade. So when the vegetables are all nice and al dente to your crunchiness, however you like it, then you're going to take 4 or 5 cups of cooked rice, divvy that up on a plate. Your plate's probably 4. This would do for 4 real nice. Add your vegetables and the turkey mixture, the stir-fry, on top of that. Top it with some sliced up green onions. You could use the green and the white part of this. It is we made this for your show years ago, and I've sold this at the restaurant lots and lots, and it is a real hit whenever I've made it.
I remember this. I remember it being excellent. You brought up something I got to follow up on. The concept of chemically cooking something as opposed to doing it with heat. What's that all about?
Well, anything acidic, like, even oil. If you soak a meat, say, in a mixture of, you could use say lemon juice, if you're going to use fish and some olive oil. There's ceviche, which is a Mexican-style dish from the coast. There, they marinate this overnight, the pieces of fish, snapper, whatever they're going to use, and that actually it makes it real firm and tender, and it actually cooks the meat chemically. You don't use any heat, and like your sushi and like that. A lot of times, you could do that, and it's basically cooked. All of the bacteria would be gone out of it because of the acidic properties of what you're marinating it in. It's, if you had a tougher piece of meat, you could soak it in red wine and oil, olive oil, and that would actually, beef or venison or something like that, and that would cook it. Same thing with duck breast. You could put duck breast in either your homemade Italian dressing that's got oil and vinegar in it, or you could buy some, and it does the same thing. It helps tenderize it.
After all these years, I'm still learning stuff from my friend Wild Game Chef Dave Miner, who joins us each week. And David, I do appreciate it. And I appreciate you being along with us as well. If you weren't listening, there'd be no reason to do this. Please check out the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can always reach me, by the way. Send me an email to Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Check out our Wednesday night lives on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Have a great week. I hope you get a chance to get out fishing, get out and do some hunting, and I'll talk with you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.